Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 642 for the 31st of January 2020. Richard Saunders coming to you from Sydney, Australia. January's nearly over. We couldn't wait for 2020 to be over, and now January 2021 is nearly over. I guess time sort of goes like that. Coming up on this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone podcast, we're going to look once more at the Great Australian Prediction Project. Now, last week we were looking at various predictions for Donald Trump. This week we're going to look at various predictions made by various psychics, mystics, seers, and ponderers of the future about Queen Elizabeth II. And whereas there were a couple of predictions last week that were made over the last 20 years that were correct about Donald Trump, this week we'll see how many predictions made by our gaggle of mystics were correct about Queen Elizabeth II. And a big shout out to all my friends who help me every week on the Great Australian Prediction Project hookup. And following that, it's Logical Fallacies with the fabulous Michelle Bijkersma. What has Michelle got for us this week? It's the Fallacy of Composition. This fallacy is about transferring or projecting the properties shared by a set of individual components to the whole group or product as if they were one and the same. Then we have the latest newsletter from the Australian Skeptics, compiled and written by Tim Mendham, what's happening this week in the world of skepticism. And to round off the show, we have another dive into the Trove and our continuing series about psychic testing mediums, that sort of stuff from 1950. This week, the panel investigates an Australian mystic. I can see kangaroos and koalas. Or something like that. Now, before we get stuck into the show, just getting back to Logical Fallacies with Michelle Bijkersma, in the past week, I have put the first 20 logical fallacies of Michelle's Logical Fallacies into one file and uploaded that as a YouTube video. And if you go to that video, of course, there'll be a link in this week's show notes, or you can just Google Logical Fallacies with Michelle. We'll probably do it. If you go there, you'll see that the 20 logical fallacies are listed right on the YouTube video with time codes. And in the description of the video, you can simply click on the time code in the description and go automatically to that logical fallacy. And right at the end is the complete theme music, so you can sit back and listen to that. And those clever listeners out there can download the whole lot right off YouTube as an audio file and listen to that while, I don't know, enjoying a scenic drive or spending time with friends. And thank you to Michelle Bijkersma for all your hard work putting those together. Soon, Michelle will have completed 40 logical fallacies, and once that's happened, I'll put up another video which will be Logical Fallacies 21 to 40. But that's enough from me at the moment. It's time for me to run downstairs. And I think it's a cheese toasty kind of day. A little bit of cheese on toast, nicely melted. And being Australian, of course, just a smear of Vegemite on the cheese. Vegemite and cheese is a wonderful combination if you haven't tried it. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. On last week's show, you may well remember, we looked into the Great Australian Prediction Project for predictions, psychic insights into Donald Trump over the last 20 years. So this week I thought we would look at another head of state. Well, Donald Trump isn't a head of state anymore, but somebody who certainly is Queen Elizabeth II. Not only is she head of state of the United Kingdom, she is also head of state of Australia. So let's peer into the pages of the project, peer into the pages of the project and pause to ponder the predictions for Queen Elizabeth II going back 20 years. The first prediction we have here comes from Anne, a popular writer for such magazines as Woman's Day, and that's exactly where this predictions come from. Woman's Day, 7th of January 2002. The Queen could have a short stay in hospital. Well, we've decided words like could are too wishy-washy, so any reasonable person would count that as a prediction that the Queen would have a short stay in hospital, and no such incident was reported in 2002. Anne, again writing in the same magazine, also, she may get into a bit of trouble by not paying the correct taxes. Again, no such incident reported in 2002. In 2004, in the same magazine, in Women's Day, we have somebody going under the handle of Princess Liara, whoever she is or was. The Queen. Growing health problems will surface for the Queen. She's hanging in there, but I don't see her being around by the end of the year, which isn't surprising in the view of all the stress she's had to cope with in recent times. Problems relating to her circulation or heart will worsen, resulting in bouts of hospitalization. Well, checking the records, no major health concerns for the Queen reported in the year 2004. Then we have a bit of a gap until the year 2010, which means there are still psychic predictions out there I haven't got a hold of yet, because every year there are psychic predictions made for the Queen. We have Hella Alexander in the International Psychics Directory. Health problems around Queen Elizabeth will mean that the subject of succession can be no longer ignored. She will likely step down by the end of the year and hand on the reins of power due to health problems. The successor will be, in all likelihood, Prince Charles. This may in turn awaken the Republican debate all over again, resulting in our own president here in Australia. But no, nothing like that happened at all in the year 2010. We have Simon Turnbull, the late Simon Turnbull, who was the president of the Psychics Association, writing in 2010, Queen Elizabeth is likely to have some health problems which will require her to step down, not necessarily kick the bucket. Simon predicts, in order to make this changeover occur, Charles may take over the reins for a short period. I think we can detect a theme here. Simon Turnbull, again, writing for STG Gloss magazine in Perth, makes the same sort of prediction, the Queen facing health problems. She will be unwell or step down, but nothing like that's been reported. And now in the year 2012, we have Brett Vollis writing in the International Psychics Directory. The Queen will become ill late next year, and there will be talk of handing over the crown in 2013. We have Lauren Jeffrey writing in the Weekly Times in January 2012. The Queen will hand the throne over to William in late 2012. Well, apart from the fact that that didn't happen, it's simply not possible unless Prince Charles died and William became next in line to the throne. The Queen can't simply hand over the throne to whomever she wishes. 2014 now, Simon Turnbull, once again in the International Psychics Directory. Queen Elizabeth may well do the unthinkable and agree to abdication so her eldest son can stop growing tomatoes. No, fail again. Kerry Irwin now in 2005, writing on her own blog. Health issues for members of the royal family with Camilla and the Queen and Prince Philip. Well, we've put that in the category of expected, with the note here, people have health issues each year. A bit vague, that one. 2006, Harry T. on the Today TV show in June, Queen Elizabeth II. The question put to him seems to be, do you think that she will live into her 100s? And his response, she has a lot of life in her. Too vague. We've simply categorized that as too vague. Maria Campbell, writing in the Eastern Riverina Chronicle in 2017, January 2017, Queen Elizabeth II, she also suspects she knows what has been ailing the Queen lately, a nasty dose of pneumonia, but she expects she has a few years left in her. And the note we've got here is we've put that under the expected column as widely reported that the Queen had a heavy cold or pneumonia. So there you go. Now we come to 2018. Georgina Walker, writing in New Idea in January. Queen and Philip. I see steps and the Queen is walking backwards, symbolically. I sense it means she is backing away, stepping down from her royal duties as monarch. I see a fall that may expedite these plans. And I see Charles rushed in to take control. I see a black flag flying over the palace. This is symbolic, indicating a passing of a significant royal. August flashes up as a major time in the royal's future. I hear, Sandringham will be my home forever. And again, nothing like that occurred. The note we have here, Queen is in good health in 2018, so that's simply a wrong prediction all round. 2019, Julie Mackenzie on her YouTube channel, predicting for the year 2019, Queen Elizabeth, Queen's Christmas speech in 2019, there may be talk about pregnancies. Well, I watched that Christmas speech and not a mention of pregnancies. Julie Mackenzie once again for 2019. The Queen to get sick and die in 2019, early 2020. Well, certainly that didn't happen. Georgina Walker, writing a New Idea in January 2020, the Queen continues to revamp the agenda of the royals, making it more simplified and youthful. Charles will be stepping into her shoes, with the view that time is now approaching for a takeover to secure the continuing success of the monarchy. Well, we've got that as a bit vague, but generally it's just expected. But still, it's really sort of like a non-prediction, that one. Julie Mackenzie, once again, for predicting for the year 2020 on her YouTube video, Ball at Buckingham Palace for everyday people. Queen too unwell to attend. Now, as far as we could tell, the Queen has been in good health during the whole of 2020, and there was certainly no ball at Buckingham Palace, or much else, as we all know. Julie Mackenzie again on the same video. The Queen, no Christmas speech in 2020. Well, there certainly was a Christmas speech in 2020 from the Queen. Now, the rest are for last year, 2020, of course. Lady D. Danielle, I'm not sure who she is, but on her YouTube channel, she predicted a shock coming up for the Queen, but she will take it in her stride. We couldn't find anything that really matched that. There could have been something. She might have seen a mouse in Buckingham Palace. Who knows? Another one of the predictions from Danielle says here, the Queen, relationship that ends for her in whatever way. Well, that's pretty vague and open, but we couldn't find anything significant there. And the last one is the Queen, trouble with one of her speeches. And the note we've put here in the column is the Queen was praised for her speeches in 2020, so no trouble there. So there we have 21 predictions about Queen Elizabeth II made over the past 20 years by various seers, mystics, psychics, clairvoyants, mediums, whatever you want to call them, fortune tellers. With the result, not one of them, not one, was correct. And most were wrong, with a few remaining which were expected or simply too vague. And it's interesting to note, if we do another search on the database for the royal family and death, for example, It's about every second year someone predicts the death of a significant royal, Prince Philip, the Queen, Prince Charles, something like that. And one day, when these predictions come true, they'll say, look, I predicted that. And for those of you keeping score at home, currently the database contains 3,214 predictions, because every now and then we keep adding some when we find some new ones or discover that a prediction in the database can be split up into several predictions. And the team have, at the moment, 677 yet to score.
Hey, fellow skeptics.
Ben Radford here,
With Celestia Ward,
your friendly host of Squaring the Strange,
a podcast that looks at topics ranging from legends, panics, and cryptids,
to media myths, psychology, and folklore.
breaking things down and picking things apart.
As we skeptics do.
We bring a few different perspectives on things.
Celestia, for example, is a witty cartoonist.
And Ben is a brilliant writer and longtime skeptical investigator.
We don't always agree,
But we have fun trying.
and we learn new things.
Join us for new topics every week or two.
Or browse our backlog of evergreen episodes.
Available on iTunes and all your podcast feeding troughs.
Squaring the Strange.
Take care, strangers.
Bye-bye.
Logical fallacies. What are logical fallacies, and why is it important that critical thinkers should know about them? A logical fallacy is an error we can make in reasoning, but it usually crops up when we are discussing or arguing our point of view. Some people might even knowingly use them to try and score cheap points in an argument due to intellectual laziness. They are traps we can fall into, but if we know what to look out for, we can spot them when they occur and stop ourselves from using them. This time, we'll look at the fallacy of composition.
This fallacy is about transferring or projecting the properties shared by a set of individual components to the whole group or product as if they were one and the same.
The fallacy of composition can appear to be quite similar to the fallacy of hasty generalization. However, the latter usually means extrapolating from only a small or anomalous sample to a larger one and drawing the wrong conclusion based on insufficient evidence. It's also the opposite of the fallacy of division, which assumes that what is true for the whole is also true for some or all of its parts.
I don't believe humans have caused global warming. Those so-called climate scientists commit the composition fallacy in their research. They aggregate temperature anomalies from specific regions, then apply that to the whole planet to say that it's warming. You have to look at each individual region separately.
If climate change scientists simply aggregated regional temperature anomalies and called it global warming, it might be arguable that they are committing the composition fallacy. However, it is valid to extrapolate in this way in some cases and not in others. The difficulty lies in knowing which side is correct in any given scenario. In this case, aside from charting averages and highlighting general trends, additional supporting evidence for the theory of global warming comes into play, and temperature data is consistent with the data from multiple lines of inquiry, including the warming oceans, melting ice sheets, and retreating glaciers, just to name a few.
One of the reasons I believe that a higher power exists is because, like many other people, I feel a sense of purpose for being here. This must also mean that human beings are placed here on Earth for a purpose.
This is a fallacy that we sometimes see coming from theists. It's true that people often feel a sense of purpose or have pet causes. However, just because any number of individuals may feel a sense of purpose, this notion cannot be transferred to humanity as a whole to argue that we have some kind of collective purpose for being here.
I've been doing some research online and have decided to give up eating foods that have names I can't pronounce, and I'm also going to avoid chemicals. First to go is salt. Did you know it contains chlorine? That's toxic to humans.
It's certainly true that sodium and chlorine are harmful to humans at certain levels when ingested separately. However, the chemical reaction that occurs when they are combined creates table salt, which is not toxic and something we eat every day. Simply considering the properties of individual chemical components does not mean that identical properties apply to the whole product.
Western medical practitioners are so reductionist. I'm going to see a naturopath who will treat me as a whole person, not just focus on my liver disease. Organs in the body don't function in isolation. They are part of a system that includes the mind, body, and spirit.
Diseases do not necessarily occur in isolation, and the majority of doctors are going to look at lifestyle and other factors that may contribute to an illness or chronic condition. However, practitioners of Western medicine do not transfer the properties of a disease in a specific organ to the body as a whole as if they were essentially the same thing, as in the case of the systems approach of the holistic health practitioners. The fallacy of composition occurs when we believe that what is true for individual parts is true for the whole. Think of it this way. Sometimes what is good for the individual is good for the group, but at other times it is not. Therefore, we have to be careful about determining when this is fallacious thinking or when it is true, and may need to seek other kinds of evidence to support our position. Knowing a logical fallacy when you hear one, and even knowing its name, is important when arguing your point of view. However, you may come across as arrogant and not get very far if you call it out by name to your opponent when you hear it being used. If your opponent calls you out for using one, it's time to stop and think about how you are making your case. Use your knowledge of logical fallacies wisely, and remember that even if your point of view is right and you know all the pitfalls in arguing your case, it doesn't always mean you'll win on the day. And as skeptics, we must also remember that we too can be wrong at times. I'm Michelle Bijkersma from the Vic Skeptics. Thanks for listening.
Drinking, hey, oh, drinks, hey.
So nice to be back at Skeptics in the pub.
Yes, Richard, it's great that COVID-19 is a thing of the past and we can gather together and not wear masks. Although I will occasionally, in special situations, you know what I mean.
This beer tastes better than I remember. And this beer glass is much bigger than I remember. Oh, thanks for this. I'll get the next round.
No need. All the beer is free tonight.
Free? Oh, wow.
Did you hear that all the anti-vaxxers and flat earthers have changed their minds?
What? Really?
Yeah. They're now busy writing apology letters to the whole world. They're really busy. They're going to have to sharpen their pencil, if you know what I mean.
Look, It's Lara coming over here with a plate full of food.
Hi, you two. Did you know that the food at the bar is free tonight? Anything you want.
Really?
You have to try the lobster and chips.
Lobster and chips? Oh, wow! This is like a dream!
And this pub now has recliner chairs, a free foot massage for everyone, and vouchers for Uber rides home.
Wow.
Hang on. This seems too good to be true. Who's the guest speaker? It's not bloody Brian Dunning, is it?
Let me see. This is odd. It says here it's the skeptical fairy godmother angel from the internet.
The skeptical godmother fairy in... You know, that sounds familiar.
Smoking it up, woman.
Hello, everyone.
Who are you? What, you're only 10 centimetres tall. That's about 4 inches for those of you using the Darth Vader Imperial system. And floating in the air, that can't be right.
As Lara said, I'm the skeptical fairy godmother angel from the internet.
Ask a silly question.
And you're tonight's guest speaker?
Well, not really. I have come to tell you that, yes, this is all a dream.
I thought this was too good to be true.
I know we can't meet in pubs at the moment, but that shouldn't stop you from enjoying skeptical talks online. The Vic Skeptics have Skeptics Cafe each month. Sydney has Skeptics in the pub. There are online events from the Gold Coast and...
Yes. This all sounds eerily familiar. Have we met before somewhere?
Maybe we have. Maybe it was as we watched a live and interactive skeptical talk. All you need do is search for them online, no matter where you are in the world.
She's right. I've been watching skeptical talks from the UK, the US, and even one from my own living room. Although that one wasn't very interesting. I fell asleep and I was the speaker.
Hang on. Weren't you once the Tooth Fairy?
I'll never live that down.
One last question.
Yes?
Just whose dream is this?
Mine. Goodbye.
It's worse than sparklers.
She disappeared.
But, we're still here, huh?
Right. So, lobster and chips, anyone?
Oh, yeah, he only pays for food and drinks in the dream, let me tell you, people.
Now it's time to once again have a look at the Australian Skeptics Newsletter, delivered to my inbox. Newsletter number 115. Hi all. A mixed bag today, with perennials Paleo Pete and Royals popping up, alongside the seriously good news from Britain about the suspension of accreditation for the UK Society of Homeopaths. Likewise, we're still in the quiet zone until, of course, one or the other COVID vaccine starts being given out here in Australia. Then we can expect a fun time. Meanwhile, congratulations to Queensland skeptic stalwart Cheryl Backhouse, who has been awarded an OAM in today's Australia Day Honours. Cheryl is also a life member of Australian Skeptics. Read on. And this, of course, is compiled and written by Tim Mendham. UK Professional Standards Authority suspends the Society of Homeopaths. And, of course, Skeptic Zone listeners will remember we covered this story just in the last couple of weeks. A very good news story indeed. The next story is Pete Evans goes political. Former celebrity, somebody who used to be on TV, and conspiracy theorist Pete Evans, I added all those other bits by the way, not Tim Mendham, has turned to one of his few remaining social media channels to hint at his next move, politics. Quote, stay tuned for an announcement next week, end quote, Evans wrote 2 weeks ago on an Instagram post under the logo of the relatively new and little-known Great Australian Party. He gave the party a push on his podcast last year, but we're still waiting for the big announcement. Great Australian Party sounds a little bit like Make America Great Again, doesn't it? And speaking of making America great again, the next item here is connection between wellness influencers and pro-Trump rioters. A research fellow at the International Centre for the Study of Radicalisation at King's College London has pointed out that many social media wellness influencers were seduced into the dark side by organised conspiracy sites. It says here the pandemic gives people a reason to want to doubt the truth because the truth is scary as hell. The wellness community in particular was full of trusted guides who championed doing your own research and questioning health information from official sources like the government. And don't forget that when you receive this newsletter by going to www.skeptics.com.au and signing up, each of these stories is accompanied by the link to more information. The next story says scientific study on hearing the dead. You have to listen very closely. We have some concerns with a recent study that finds that spiritualist mediums might be more prone to immersive mental activities and unusual auditory experiences early in life. According to new research led by Durham University in the UK, this might explain why some people, and not others, eventually adopt spiritualist beliefs and engage in the practice of hearing the dead. Our concern is that the study almost implies that it's a cause and effect, and doesn't seem to doubt the underlying practice of spiritualism and hearing voices. It might just be that people who are inclined towards spiritualist practices are also prone to hearing voices rather than one leading to the other. A psychological or social studies issue rather than a medical one. And the next item says $1 million for evidence of life after death. Here's an opportunity for you. Robert Bigelow, a Las Vegas real estate and aerospace mogul, quote, with billionaire allure and the resources to fund his restless curiosity embracing outer and inner space, UFOs and the spirit realm, end quote, is offering nearly $1 million in prizes for 3 essays that, quote, summarize the best evidence available for the survival of human consciousness after permanent bodily death. End quote. Good luck, mate. And there are more items to read here, but I'll let you subscribe and read those for yourself. There's a quick little plug here for the December 2020 issue of the Skeptic magazine, which we've covered before, and of course, to which you should subscribe. And finally, we have items of interest, travel tip. Ireland's new tourism promo, Come to Earth. Ireland seems to be a popular destination for extraterrestrials, as data shows it is the European countries with the most alien visits. Ireland, okay. Psychic World reports that there have been 105 recorded UFO sightings in Ireland, with each visit lasting an average of 13 minutes. That's not very long. The majority of sightings in Ireland have been described as unexplainable bright lights. France and Spain come in second and third respectively. And there's another one here to round off. AltMed destroys cars. A fire that severely damaged 7 cars and caused $125,000 worth of damage in West Australia's Midwest has been blamed on an aromatherapy device in one of the vehicles. See? We told you AltMed was dangerous. Lots more to read in the Australian Skeptics Newsletter, and you can sign up for yourself at www.skeptics.com.au, and you too can receive every other week the ponderings of Tim Mendham. Thursday, the 4th of February, 2021, join us for Sydney Skeptics in the Pub online. We present a talk by computer scientist Dr. Alan Blair, PhD. Deep fake technology and computational creativity. Recent advances in artificial intelligence and computer graphics are allowing computers to write stories, compose music, and create artworks of remarkable quality, and to generate videos which are so realistic that their authenticity is almost impossible to verify. This talk will summarize the history and current status of deepfake technology. Dr. Blair completed a BSc BA at the University of Sydney and a PhD at MIT and is now working at the University of New South Wales. Join us online via Twitch, 7 p.m. Sydney time, Thursday the 4th of February. See you there. It's time to dive once more into Trove, the online resource from the Australian Government and the National Library of Australia. And over the past weeks we've been going through Into the Unknown, a series published here in Australia first in 1950. And this is the story of examination of claims of the paranormal conducted in the UK. Over the past 4 weeks, we've had the accounts of Mrs. Hughes, who was taken over by the spirit of White Feather to give her readings. We've had Mr. Robert Dell, who also gave some readings to the panel. This week, we have an Australian ultra-sensitive. An Australian, Alfred Rayner of Sydney, was one of the mediums who offered to assist the panel in its investigations. And listeners will know that in my opinion so far, in reading these accounts from so long ago, it appears that so far it's simply the same stock standard cold reading that we see even today. Although you can forgive the panel of investigators at the time for not knowing too much about cold reading. It's really a branch of magic that has been written about in more recent times and studied, and you can buy good textbooks on it. And this part of the report comes from the colour magazine, the Sunday Sun Supplement, published on the 24th of September 1950. A remarkable test of the ultra-sensitive was given on October the 20th, 1949, by the Australian medium Mr. Alf Rayner. Rayner is well known for his voluntary spiritualist work in Sydney, where he formed an efficient psychic research group. The test was made in a private séance room at the Marylebone Spiritualist Association, to which body Rayner had been attached during part of his work in the United Kingdom. Rayner is a short, rather stocky figure who radiates personal charm. He speaks with a slight Australian accent, and his manner is refreshingly frank. Almost at once after sitting with the panel, he confessed that he would not be able to show much psychic evidence, as he felt the mass mind of the members of the panel presented a barrier. Nevertheless, he would attempt some delineation of the psychic aura to demonstrate the ultra-sensitive, and turn to Lord Amwell. You can be extremely stubborn, which makes life a little difficult sometimes. And when you lose your temper, it takes too much out of you. I feel that even old Nick wouldn't be able to shift you once you've made up your mind. You get that from your father. He was not quite so stout as yourself, a shade taller. He was a kindly man and very sensitive, a fine man who loved the country, with a good sense of humour. Your mother was a forceful personality. You are more like your father. Your mother is showing me that she had an amazing skin. She minded her own business, didn't she? And she would stick to a thing if she said so. You had to make a lot of quite big decisions. Your mother is very proud of what you've done. I want you to watch your health. There is a little pressure that could affect you. Get a medical overhaul. I feel you are not content to sit still. You put everything you have got into a thing and you don't know where to leave off. They want you to relax a little more.
Lord Amwell.
Do you mean blood pressure? I have had an overhaul for that with very favourable results.
Medium.
You may have, but you have a pressure on the temples that I want you to watch. I am hearing the name of William Thompson. I feel there is a family by that name. I think you have been connected with huge machines. You have got on your own bat. Your mother is very delighted with you. Have you had trouble with one ankle? The spirit people are showing me one ankle.
Lord Amwell.
Yes, I sprained it. Can you tell me the occupation of my father?
Medium.
No, I am only getting a lot of writing.
Medium. To Mr. Ainsworth.
Have you been able to write things?
Mr. Ainsworth.
Yes.
Medium.
You get quick impressions. You have a quick, active brain. You are hypersensitive and get hurt more than people ever know. You are extremely emotional, and that intensity of nature has helped you in your work. Your father was an older man, broader across the forehead. He had a great sense of humour. There was only a very short illness before he went over. Was there something the matter with his shoulder? Something that may have made one shoulder droop a bit? But I feel he was able to get about considerably.
Rayner turned to another sitter.
Have you had a good deal of controlling to do? I feel you have everything at your fingertips. You were born to lead. You will get there. In fact, you have succeeded, and you are not going to let it slip out of your fingers. I feel you still keep your finger on the pulse of things, small and large. Can you influence politics? Have you done a good deal of writing?
Sitter.
I have been associated with it.
Medium.
You have to decide whether it should come in front of the public. Your father was considered an extremely handsome man. He had a whimsical smile. He is near you a great deal more than one who is alive. He had a very quick, painful illness, failed quickly. I am hearing the name of Joseph and King. Not in the family. It's a man who looked after machinery. I feel he was a watchman. He puts his hand on your head. Could you sing when you were young? He is talking of it. Your father is not too well.
Sitter.
I haven't seen him for years.
Medium.
Your mother was a fairly tall woman. I am getting... Anne? It's your daughter. You are very pleased with her. There is a great harmony between the two of you. Is she married? I feel she is about 18.
Sitter.
17.
Medium.
She loves the outdoor life and the open air. I am also getting a very old lady named Sarah. You also have a son. He is a very different type from the girl. You cannot force him. He doesn't want to do what you have done. Don't force him into it. The spirit people are very pleased indeed with that boy. He must do creative work. He is a wonderful lad.
To Canon Knight.
You have an amazing power in your fingertips for healing. You are vibrating purple rays of healing. You can shake off a cold or a flu at once. You have wonderful recuperative powers. I feel you wouldn't rush a thing.
Canon Knight.
That is true.
Medium.
It takes a lot to make you even raise your voice. The spirit people are very pleased with the balance you have shown. I want to say, you have made a good job of it. You get your power more from your mother than your father. He was an extremely quiet man, but I can hear him laughing. He had a lovely laugh. Do you link with any ministers? I can see the collar back to front.
Canon Knight was not wearing a clerical collar.
Have you injured your knee? I am getting the name of Margaret. I feel someone has had a very nasty injury to the leg. It links up with your wife, perhaps?
Lord Amwell.
It would be very evidential if I could get what I want. I want one little simple thing in connection with a name, and I haven't got it yet. I want to get to the mechanics of it. It is rather baffling.
Medium.
You are more likely to get what you want if you sit with a medium alone. There are not so many different vibrations. You have all been very kind. I would rather have a critical group than a gullible group.
Mr. Ainsworth.
How much do you get from spirit, and how much from our own minds?
Medium.
If you mean telepathy, I have tried it, and I can't do it. I get your characters from your auras.
Lord Amwell.
When does a child stop growing in the spirit world?
Medium.
When they have reached maturity. Actual age only belongs to your physical body. If a man is old when he passes, he progresses, and the spirit revives. You would be about 25 years old at the best time of your life. Children are still guided to a certain extent by their parents, who are still alive.
The medium told of an incident in Australia during the war, when there was some public rejoicing when Allied troops were there. He saw a drunken sailor go into the middle of the road and attempt to board a tram. There were a man and a woman standing in the road also. He fully expected them to be hit by the traffic, but they stood unharmed. The sailor was hit, and soon a crowd gathered around him. The couple, who had been standing surrounded by traffic, went through the crowd and led away the spirit of the sailor who had died in the roadway. Mr. Rayner realized that he had been seeing, with the clearest clairvoyance he had ever experienced, the loved ones come, ready and waiting for the accident which was to take place. And a little aside from me, I wonder if it be possible to go through the archives, the newspaper reports of the day, and find a report of that incident where a sailor was killed in the roadway. Maybe, maybe not. We read on. Panel's report. Lord Amwell.
A high percentage of hits. I can confirm the personal details about one other person present. Altogether, an interesting sitting.
Canon Knight.
A pleasant, cheerful personality, typically Australian. Gave a remarkable account of some of his own powers, but we cannot check accounts of what he says he saw in his own country. He sat without being in trance and drew in most of those present. There were many statements made about those present which were clearly untrue, but he said something or other about most people which was more or less on the mark. His character reading was interesting and might have been made by anyone able to size up people by their general impression. We all do a bit of this.
And we'll leave it there on that page. It's only a one-page report from the 24th of September, and it says, a little box at the bottom of the page, next Sunday, a spirit healer demonstrates his powers. And it's interesting to note also on this page two advertisements. One is for a finishing school for young women, and the other says, 5 doctors prove this plan breaks the laxative habit. If you take laxatives regularly, here's how you can stop. Because 5 New York doctors now have proved you may break the laxative habit and establish your natural powers of regularity. 83% of the cases tested did it. So can you. Stop taking whatever you're taking now. Instead, every night for 1 week, take 2 Carter's Little Liver pills. Second week, 1 each night. Third week, 1 every other night. Then nothing. Every day, drink 8 glasses of water. Oh, that's interesting. Even back in 1950, there was something about drinking 8 glasses of water. Every day, drink 8 glasses of water. Set a determined time for regularity. Carter's Little Liver pills unblock the lower digestive tract, and from there, it's getting difficult to read because the writing is small and it's a little bit obscured, but I'll keep going. And from then on, let it make use of its own natural powers. Further, Carter's Little Liver pills contain no habit-forming drugs. Get Carter's Little Liver pills at any chemist or store. And so next week we have part 6 for our purposes of Into the Unknown, a frank report on the riddle of spiritualism. And to whet your appetite, the opening paragraph says, healing of the sick by the laying on of hands or making of psychic passes is not regarded by all psychic workers as a legitimate part of what can strictly be considered to be within the scope of spiritualism. So join us next week for this account of a spiritualist healer. And this will come to us, of course, from the Colour magazine, although it's not in colour because it's strictly black and white copies I've got access to. Colour magazine, Sunday Sun supplement, and this time it'll be from the 1st of October 1950. And, of course, if you can't wait to find out what happens, you can read this account for yourself by visiting Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, links in this week's show notes. And I'm sure if you run a search for Into the Unknown, you will find this ongoing story. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. And as you would have heard in the show this week, we have Skeptics in the Pub online from Sydney, Australia. I hope you can join us for that later on in the week, no matter where you are in the world. And if you go to www.maynard.com.au, if you haven't seen it already, you can enjoy the latest Maynard's quiz I helped Maynard produce a couple of weeks ago. Thank you to those people who've just come on board to help sponsor the show at Patreon or PayPal at www.skepticzone.tv. Just click the link. You'll see the link on the page. And without your support, of course, there would be no Skeptic Zone. Oh, and thank you to Lara Benham for taking part with Maynard and Michelle Bijkersma in the latest Skeptical Godmother Fairy sketch. On next week's show, more from our continuing series from Trove, all those years ago, testing psychics in the 1950s, more Logical Fallacies with Michelle Bijkersma, and as I cannot peer into the future, we'll all just have to wait to see what comes up. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation. hello to... Where's my coffee? Oh, that's better. Hello to all those people who listen after the music, the afterthoughts for the dice rolling segment, where I have a 10-sided die here. Very nice, sort of translucent blue. I have quite a collection, and I hope to give them away someday when I see people once again, when we can meet in public. Nevertheless, here we go. So, it's up to you if you haven't heard this part of the show before. Use your psychic powers, or whatever powers you want, and see if you can predict what number comes up. I'll roll it 3 times. I always get my special limited edition Skeptic Zone pen ready. Here it is. It's so limited, it's just a pen. Okay. First one. First number out of 10. 5. There you are, Susan Gerbeck, who listens very closely for the number 5. There's one for you. Next number. Not 5 this time. 8. 8 is our number. And the last number coming up. Where is it? Oh, here it is. It's a 9. 5, 8, and 9. And this week's supplementary, so you get one more, is a 7. So they're all different this week. 5, 8, 9, and 7.